So I'm joined by Rachel Maxann. Rachel is a phenomenal vocalist, musician, and performer. And I learned about you through Victoria Dowdy,
Our favorite.
who's an angel.
We love her.
And then I listened to your album Black Fae, which I was really stunned by because, first of all, I love Fae stuff.
Hey, me too.
And fairies were like my thing growing up. And I just had to have you on. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate you listening to the album.
Yeah, it was lovely. Goddess is just like that thud and like the ethereal and the synths. Like it was amazing. What was the idea behind that album? And talk me through the process of how you created it.
Right. So, the album itself, it's it felt like a collection of kind of pieces almost since I think the first song on it I'd written like maybe in college. Like it's something that kind of had been in the vaults per se, or done in different ways. But the way I created the album and even the way I have the track listing, it's very much an exploration of my mental health, how I felt about the world, how I see the world, how I feel like the world sees me, and a lot of it is actually done with the idea of like it's a depressive spiral. Because I had that's not something you could poof away, but depression,
Yes.
for all of my life, and the way that I've been able to track my spirals is that usually there is this there's a thought, there's an intrusive thought, there's that turns into maybe contemplation, and it can get to a very dark place, but it can also come out having learned something new about myself. So that's kind of how the album, kind of has flown. And I just talked to somebody about this the other day. They asked like, why wasn't Goddess like up in front? That was like the single that was the biggest and the one I released. I'm like, well, that's not where the depressive spiral usually lands. It doesn't start off with me feeling like a goddess.
Yeah, it's linear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely doesn't start off with me feeling like a goddess, but it's something that I'm like, by the time you get to Goddess, it's like, oh, okay, I can have gone through this depressive spiral for this anxiety and so on and so forth. And I'm still a goddess throughout the whole thing. I just didn't know it.
Yes. I could definitely tell it was like a concept album because one thing I appreciated was like it was an album. It was 56 minutes. It's like a true album. Was that important for you to have like a larger body of work?
It was. It's the first album that I've fully kind of done by myself. Like, I mean, I had a great producer and great musicians on, but, before when I'd made albums, I felt like there was a lot more input, into either from the band I was with at the time or just, whatever. But this was a fully like, I'm making all the decisions, I like this there and I don't like that there. Like, it felt very much like me going out into the world.
Yeah. And did you record all of it like within a few months or like what was the actual process of making it, like the work of it? How, like what was the studio time like?
Oh gosh, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Definitely probably over the course of like 6 months, maybe a year really to have the whole thing beginning to end. But, the recording process was, I take the songs that I have and, we lay them down. And then, my amazing producer, Doug, would, kind of add his, symphonics or, like in Goddess, all the beats and the noises and whatnot. So, that in itself took some time. And then like going back, because like many creatives, it is hard for me to finish something where I'm just like, but what if we just tweaked that or added that or like, and some of those we did. And then some of those we just had to accept because it could have been longer. That was me kind of editing down, the album and the length of some of the songs and just the tracks in general. But it could have been a lot longer, but it was a pretty long process.
Yeah. And with songs, do you start with lyrics or do you start with melodies? What's kind of like your beginning, middle, and end of creating a single song?
Right. More often than not, it'll all come at once. which is I from what I've heard, a fairly unique way to go about it. But it comes from an emotion. It comes from an experience, and then it's just me sitting down, and it usually comes all at once, where it's just like I'll think of the melody, and then the words just seem to like fit within that melody. Like it all comes out together.
I love that. And it's like for that to happen, you have to be like at like a creatively balanced place, I feel like. Yeah. How do you keep that creativity open to receiving those kind of moments where it all happens at once?
Gotcha. Well, it's making sure that I give myself time for like that input, that creative input that then turns into the, the output and the art and whatnot. But, even recently I've had a lot of shows and, a lot of traveling, which has been amazing. And now I'm giving myself time to like settle and enjoy those experiences and reflect on those experiences. So it's finding almost like that work-life balance, because if I just keep on playing shows, there's never time to write. If I never like slow down and stop, I can't think, so much has happened. Like I can't, put it into words if I don't ever slow down. So it's finding that balance, because I love playing shows. Like I love being on the go, but I also know myself well enough that like if I don't get that rest, if I don't get that time to be creative, I'm going to start resenting it.
And burning out.
And burning out.
Yes.
I never want to do that.
Creative burnout is real. Back to Black Fae. I wanted to ask, what was like the Fae imagery about? What made you want to call it that, and what inspires you about Faes?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So many different aspects of it, right? So, one there, I just love fairies. I love, mythical creatures and fantasy. And, even this is like, pre kind of the controversial stuff of Lord of the Rings or even Little Mermaid. It's just like, Black people are often, ignored or just completely written out of, these fantastical elements. So, first and foremost, I am a Black fairy. Like I encompass the things of the Fae in that way. So it's just like, okay, so I wanted that to be an important note of it. Secondary, there is the concept of Black Fae, kind of the maybe the dark or evil Fae, right? Because there's there's Tinkerbell, but people who look into fairies and that, they know that they can go to very dark places sometimes as creatures, and I wanted to nod to that as well. As like, okay, yes, there is the the fantastical elements, but there's also the darkness that we need to address about being Fae.
Yeah, and along with Fae, like there's some queerness in Fae.
Oh yeah.
Which that's my favorite part about it.
Mm-hmm.
Does queerness is that involved in your creativity or art?
Yes. The first song I think of, which will actually be probably on the next album or EP. There's a song called "Keep Me in Mind," where I talk about my experience of falling in love with two people at the same time, and they ended up, getting married, and a very cute hetero relationship, and congrats to them. But it was a struggle.
Mm-hmm. That sounds really. That sounds like a TV show.
I know. I know, right? But yeah, so it does come into place quite a bit. But as I've talked about in previous interviews, sometimes it's not so obvious at the forefront. But me speaking from my experience is still inherently a queer song. Is still inherently a queer experience. Mm-hmm. My Black joy, my queer joy, like it comes through the songs, even if it's not like a Chapel Roan level of obvious.
Right.
It's just like, well, this is just kind of my experience with it.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I forgot to mention that you also are is a therapist.
Yes.
I love that. Like, I love a creative therapist. Tell me what led you to study that, and how do you think it impacts your creativity?
Oh man, in so many ways. I think I really realized that I wanted to be a therapist probably in high school. Because I was always fascinated by like the human mind and just the idea of psychology and so on and so forth. But I was able to find applications to myself which, not only really helped my own, mental health, but helped me understand the world around me and have more empathy for it. So, that of course has, been within the creative process, as well, the empathy for myself and for others. But, as far as that career goes, it's also one of those careers that I can do both. I never felt like I had to choose, between like, do you pursue psychology or you pursue music? Because I'm like, well, they feel so intertwined to me.
Why is that?
Well, one, a lot of songwriting, I would say for myself and probably a lot of other writers, is like self-reflection.
Yep.
It is thinking about our thought processes, or at the very least, it's a cathartic experience. So for me, it's like, okay, when I tell my clients like, hey, go reflect on this, journal, write about it, see how you feel. There's been times where I'll write a song and, I'll have the emotions, but then I'll listen to it later and be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was really struggling with this. I didn't even realize it until I put it out there. So I feel like they're intertwined in that way. And then as a career, it's just like the flexibility of the job is really helpful. Because I can see clients during the day and play a show at night. I can even kind of, work around, my schedule and their schedule. And because it's all about emoting, it's all about, reflection. To me, it's like, yeah, no, these go hand in hand, like for sure.
Have you ever had any clients that are artists or creatives?
I have. And, it's nice to have a bit of self-disclosure, I find, in the room. I wouldn't necessarily tell them, like, go follow me and be like, oh, my God, we're, like, so similar. But it's just like, I can see where you're coming from sometimes.
And you don't have to go into it, but, like, what is, like, the common struggle you see with, like, your artistic clients, like, if they're talking about art?
Oh gosh, definitely, self-doubt, that comes up a lot. Confidence. I think creatives as a whole tend to deal with a lot of depression and anxiety. So, there's a lot of that. And also just, the feeling of validation comes up a lot, especially for younger artists or even bigger artists who are just like, oh, I just want someone to recognize me. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Where does that need come from? Because, there's the base level of like, okay, we're artists. We want people to see our stuff. We want, so on and so forth. But then there's also like, okay, but that validation part, let's explore that. Let's see like where did that come from outside of just the performance aspect? Where are you missing that? So, things like that.
And what are some kind of like techniques or practices you help them to like overcome self-doubt and search that validation?
Gosh, it really depends on the person, but it always tends to begin with self-reflection, and asking the tough questions, like I was saying before, like where do you think that comes from? Like, and if you aren't feeling that confident, like it's like, okay, well, let's see where we can identify the things that we do feel confident, what we do enjoy about ourselves. So that's always a good base, but again, it tends to be tailored to each person because people will seek validation for a million different reasons. So it depends.
And have you ever, obviously, but like when you've dealt with self-doubt and trying to find out that need for validation, what have you learned about yourself through that?
Goodness. Well, for one, I've learned that, when I am seeking validation from other people, it usually means that there's something I'm not giving myself. Whether that be time, boundaries, even self-validation, to give myself that praise, to, like I was saying before, be able to reflect and sit down and be, thankful to myself. and, praise myself and give that be like, hey, you did a lot this year. Like, good job, before you strive for the next thing. Can we take a moment and enjoy that about ourselves? Because we too often, again, as creatives, just run right by it. Like, we'll do something big, and then, like, the next gig is up, the next whatever's up, and we're already like preparing for that instead of like enjoying the moment. So I've definitely learned I need to pause more and give myself a little more love on things.
I love that. And I would consider you like a star on the rise. Like you're gaining popularity. You're in the press. You have a big show coming up with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yes.
What is this? How is this success impacting you? Are you living your dream? Like how are you feeling about all this success?
Wow. I am so thrilled to be asked that question, because it just makes me feel like, oh my gosh, thank you. It feels very validating. Yeah. Thank you. It feels great. My vision of success has changed over the years, as I think it often does, where, of course, when you're a kid, you're like, I want to be Beyonce. Like, I still want to be Beyonce.
I want to be Gaga.
Yeah. So like, oh, right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes.
Beyonce, Gaga, and Britney were my top three.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Like 100%. So, when my focus kind of shifted from, being a star and like kind of those lofty ideas to connection, and collaboration and community, like that is, it's still a concept that some days I struggle with, but like, to me, that feels like a lot more success than the idea of like being like big and famous. Like, I get to play music with my friends. I get decently paid for it. I get to travel because of it. That is the dream, to me. And, will bigger things happen? Maybe, that'd be cool. But at the same time, like, the way I'm performing and doing shows and able to do what I do, yeah, it feels really successful.
Yeah, I love that. And I was reading that you consider yourself like postmodern folk. Is that correct? And that makes sense because you care about connection, and folk music is very intimate, and it's very narrative driven. I feel like. What led you to want to explore folk music and indie music?
Yeah, I think probably the beginning of the love came from my mom. She raised us on bluegrass and, kind of the older country music and, folk music. So I think that influence was always there. And, for years, I think I've had already been writing folk music, but didn't have the words for it, have the label for it, because, being a Black musician, it was like, kind of like a singer-songwriter or like something like that. I never had gotten the label of folk. But, as soon as I started exploring what, folk was and, what it was about and the type of music was made from it, I'm like, no, that is folk music.
Yeah. Black people started folk music.
No, 100. Oh my gosh, yes. Which is so beautiful to see that becoming so much, more well-known and recognized as fact.
Yes.
Like, it's not like, oh, we're only just trying this out. It's like, no, we started it.
In there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mentioned the Grizzlies show. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? What are your feelings on performing in such like a huge venue?
Right. So this is my my second time doing it. So it's a lot less nerve-wracking than, the first time. Because the staff is honestly lovely and they make it so chill. Like, it's obviously wonderful to, be on a big stage and, be able to share something on a bigger stage. And, I'm hoping to have some influence, perhaps some, representation, where it's going to be an all-girl band, which I love. Yes. So I feel like more than ever is just like, we need good representation.
Mm-hmm. We need more girl bands.
We definitely need more girl bands.
Yes.
Always more girl bands.
Yes. So the first time, do you get stage fright? Like, how do you manage performing in front of so many people? Because like, as something I've talked about on this podcast, I'm still trying to work up the nerve to perform my music in front of people, which is my big goal for this year. So I like to get any tips I can from people who've done it.
Right. This is going to sound strange, but, honestly, I think I get more stage fright from smaller crowds, like intimate crowds, as opposed to like big crowds. Because I think like with the first time, I thought I was going to be more nervous, but I never really was. And I think part of it is that when it's like a big crowd, like you just, you can't really focus in on a single person. You can't like meet somebody's eyeballs. And sometimes in big crowds, there, a few people might be talking to each other. They're kind of like doing whatever. So there's a less pressure from it. And, something about looking into the sea of people just kind of gets a little blurry almost, you kind of forget how many people, whereas, in some, smaller, even like singer, songwriter, writers in the round vibe. But, those kind of things actually make me a little more nervous because it's like, people are very intently like looking at you, hanging on every word. It's just more direct. So it's
vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable, and it's a wonderful thing to do, and I love doing it. But, I actually get more nervous about those shows than like bigger ones.
I could totally see that because like smaller shows are quiet and it's like, it's like a pin drops and you can that sounds terrifying, but you got to do it.
It's a great experience, but yeah, don't trust. So really my advice to you would be just start with sold out 1,000 person seaters and then go from there.
On it.
And then go from there.
I'm gonna call the Grizz up and be like, get me on the next halftime show.
Honestly.
So you released your album in 2023?
Yes.
Are you working on a new album right now?
I am.
Okay, so tell me about that.
I am. I know. So I had released one of the singles from it kind of, midsummer last year, I think, The Tides, which was kind of like a little mini EP solo because I did an acoustic version and a band version and kind of released that. But so like that song, and then, speaking back on, that time to reflect and write, like I have some songs in the vault, from like early last year, through my travels. Like I started a song while I was in Colombia. I started a song while I was in Ireland, like, but since then, or even since last year, I just really haven't had time to like just sit down and then flesh them out and then, get it through the recording process. So it's in the works. And that process has been like many of the processes I've had before, where it's like, it just kind of happened. I just have to make time to record it.
Yeah, it does take time. How do you think your sound or writing has evolved since Black Fae?
I think I've gotten better at guitar for one,
nice.
Which helps. And I've also picked up some other instruments that I really want to add on, to the album. Honestly, and this is maybe the first time I've said this out loud, I plan on doing all the instrumentation myself.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What are the instruments?
So it'll be piano, banjo, guitar, ukulele, and cajon.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And maybe some harmonica and maybe some
Yes.
other things. Like I have ADHD, believe it or not.
Me too.
And I see lots of like, I'm a master of none, kind of jack of all trades kind of vibe, where I'm like, I like that instrument and I like that instrument and I like that. So I have all these things at my house. Like I have a bass at my house. I have the cajon at my house. I have the banjo at my house. And I'm like, not only would it, challenge me to get better at these instruments that I'm like decently fine at all of them, but also I can. Like it's like, that's crazy. Like, and I, the next album I want is going to be a lot more acoustic based. It's going to be a lot more folky. And I'm like, no, all these instruments that I wanted it, like I can play, maybe not super skillfully, but like I can play all of them.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. And I get it about the ADHD. It's like, why did I buy a digital saxophone? And it's like, I played it for like 10 days and then I just like put it in my closet and forgot about it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do the piano now.
Because you might want to play it someday.
Exactly. I'm going to.
You never know.
I learned to scale and I was like, I'm a digital saxophonist. So you tackled like depression spirals of Black Fae. Are there any themes that you're tackling with your new album?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
Yeah.
It'll come.
Yeah, you know, it'll kind of come. You know, so far the themes that I've you know, kind of picked up in my songs have been more hope and connection, a little bit of you know, a challenge to the status quo. There is some more activism than there has been in previous songs. Yeah, it's I don't know what the overall theme will be, but it's looking to be definitely an album of hope and resilience.
I love that. It's like, you know, after the depression, you like have the energy to fight back.
Yes.
And like fight for your hope and healing. Almost.
Right. No, absolutely. And I find it's, you know, at least for myself, I find it's easier to fight for others, maybe even more than myself sometimes, which is like.
You're a therapist.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You know, this is something I talked to my therapist about, where she's like, you are so ready to go in the ring for other people, but like maybe bring some of that back. I'm like, yeah, I'll think about it.
So my favorite question to ask artists, if you had all the time, all the resources, what would be your dream project?
Wow. The first thing that comes to mind is like, it would be really cool to perform with like a symphony, in like a old cathedral, something like that. Like just create like a live album, like kind of recording within this like, you know, a cathedral with like a choir, and like I would definitely want to go just all out with it, or in a cave.
Ooh, a cave would be cool. I saw this video where someone made an organ out of a cave. Have you seen that?
No.
They like connected like organ things to stalagmites and stalactites, and like you press a button and it hits a. I'll have to send it to you. But it's really cool.
Please do. That sounds.
But when
badass.
you say cave, I was like, yes, we need like to go back to caves.
Cave music.
Yes.
I just went to a rave in the cave a few weeks ago.
Really? In Memphis?
Yeah. No. It's in Pelham, Tennessee. It's like it's the venue called the Caverns.
Ooh.
And it's a venue inside of a cave.
That's very fey.
It's so cool.
That's really. I need to check that out.
Oh, please do. It's a very cool venue.
So, what is next for Rachel Maxann? What are you most looking forward to in your creative endeavors? Okay. Bloopers are good. It adds humanity.
Okay. What am I looking forward to next? Gosh, I think the upcoming shows that I have where I get to play with my friends. I'm doing a lot of different collaborations this year. Because for the past year, I've been, you know, primarily playing with an awesome group of guys, some friends of mine. But, you know, I think I really want to explore a little bit more, like, you know, collaborate with different artists and people. Like I'm going to be having a G-Pack show with completely different girls, you know, and, you know, I've been invited to, you know, do some recordings for like a ukulele orchestra. So I'm really looking forward to just kind of, you know, exploring that. I'll be doing a lot more solo shows and, you know, traveling and just being able to create more music all together.
That's the dream. You're living the dream. So I really want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having
you're
me.
such an inspiration. Like, I learned just so much just talking to you right now. I feel like calm and like, so I really want to thank you for your words and your talent and your creativity.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you saying that.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.